As I usually do, I started work on the Extreme Flight Extra 300 by using a medium heat iron and going over all the seams on the covering just to make sure everything was stuck well. I found a couple little places where the seams are lifting a little bit, but those are easily fixed, and that's all I found on the whole plane. Otherwise, the covering was perfect. The airframe is laser cut and jig assembled, so it's strong and straight. As you'll see later, this airframe is capable of withstanding even extreme aerobatics. I didn't actually find any loose joints, but as I always do, I went over all the joints I could reach with thin CA. This is just cheap insurance. One of the things I liked about their motor box is this exterior doubler. That can't do anything but increase the strength a little bit, and yeah, I hit that with some CA also. Extreme Flight races plane for a 35cc motor, but they do include a DA50 template because they know we're going to jack these things up a little bit. While I really do like this kit, this is the one dumb thing I found in the assembly. These little ovals are how you're supposed to put the landing gear bolts and their washers down into the frame. Since you have to reach all the way through the canister tunnel, you need a reasonably long hex wrench. The only way I could find to keep that bolt and its washer on as we feed it down through the hole was to magnetize the wrench itself. This is a really strong welding magnet, and I stuck the wrench to the side of this for a while, and that magnetized it enough to hold the bolt and washer. The kit comes with double fiberglass arm control horns everywhere you look, and I like that. All of the hardware in this kit is really good quality, and they all come in marked bags like this, so it's really easy to find what you need. The elevator servos are marked directly across from each other in the tail section, and there's not enough room in there for both of them to be sitting flat. I doubled up on the rubber bushings and the brass inserts to stand both of the servos up that little bit more, and that did the trick. These are standard size servos, so maybe they need to make this tail end a little bit wider. I've had to do this a couple of times before on other planes, but still, I think there's no excuse for it. They just make the back of the plane a little wider. All of the control surfaces have the heavy beveling, so you can get some really scary throws out of them. And you get the large pin-style hinges that I really like. These are easy to install and get a real tight joint. The Extra doesn't have a defined place to mount the receiver, so I built this little platform to put it on so I could strap it down. I glue a piece of 1/2-inch foam to the platform and then use a hook and loop strap to hold it down, and it works just fine. As happens even with giant scales, this fuselage looked huge, but once you get everything in it, it's not that big. At this point, I'm getting close to being ready to balance it, and after we get it all balanced and know for sure everything's where it's going to stay, then we'll clean up the wiring. That mount for the throttle servo doesn't come with the kit. I had one left over from some other plane. This is how I wound up having to set both of the elevator servos up. With everything zeroed out, the servo arm still winds up cheated forward just a little bit. I'm editing this video now after having flown the plane a bunch of times, and this little angle hasn't seemed to bother the plane in the least. Extreme Flight includes this tiller-style tailwheel steering, and I think that's the best there is. I hate those stupid little springs they have on the other ones. There's a bunch of people that'll tell you that I'm not the best there is at cutting a cowl. When you hang a DA50 in here with my favorite Bison Pitts muffler, you need to cut some holes in this thing. The good news is we've got plenty of exit area for a good airflow through the cowl. With the bigger motor, I figured I'd have to add some weight to this thing to get it to balance. And here it's sitting nice and stable on my easy balancer. I had to put this little strip of lead under the tail wheel, and then I put my Minion pilot in this. He actually weighs quite a bit. About the third day into flying this thing, the snap rolls were getting so violent that the Minion broke loose inside the canopy. So he's getting replaced with some lead I'm going to add to the tail so I can cut down the overall weight. I built these holders for the battery packs right at the rear end of the canopy. You want to remember these because during one of the test flights, something truly amazing and scary happened. We'll come back to this a little later. I did the first flights with a 3-bladed Meslick carbon fiber 2212 prop on it. I did try a couple of two-bladed props on it. It seemed like it might have had just a little more pull to it, but I like the three-blade and have left that on for most of the time since. And as you can see, even with it running a little rich, the DA50 and that three-bladed prop don't have any problems pulling this airplane around. As a matter of fact, it was so fast it outrun the focus. Okay, maybe we bumped the focus ring. The extra only needed a couple of clicks of trim to fly straight and level, so despite the wind, I decided to start shooting some landing approaches just in case I needed to get this back on the ground, and it handles wind great. This wing is surprisingly thin, and it does carry a little more speed than you expect, but you just learn where to throttle it back, and it's fine. We had some pretty stiff winds coming almost down the runway, and that gave the airplane enough airspeed that it wanted to keep flying, so I had to add a couple of clicks of down trim to get it to settle down onto the ground. But it's still real predictable and easy to fly. Despite the gusty winds, things like elevators are pretty easy to do with the extra. Find the right amount of throttle and it doesn't rock the wings much, and you've got good rudder authority so you can steer it during the elevators. Even though I still have the DA50 pretty rich, the extra does carry a good amount of speed if you make a wide open pass. And the vertical's not all that bad neither. It's easy to get the extra into a flat spins, and this is one of the designs that's easy to go from an inverted to an upright flat spin. This is only the second flight, but the extra is feeling stable enough that I tried one of my snap rolls, a little higher than normal until we get used to it, but it cranks off snap rolls great. After this flight, I'd find something just absolutely amazing about this plane, and I think it happened during one of these tumbles. You can see that the extra really can get cranked up. I do these power off. You just go full power, go up, and then stuff the sticks in the corners, and it just tumbles all over the place. When I brought it in for a landing, it was trying to squat, holding the tail down. I had to add 3 clicks of down trim to get it to sink normally. But other than that, the plane flew fine. It landed great, taxied around fine. I didn't notice anything odd about the plane other than that little bit of a squat. Then when I was taking the plane apart, I noticed that one of the battery packs was gone. Obviously my mounting on that side was insufficient. There weren't any holes in the plane, so I knew there's only one place this battery pack could have went, and that was towards the back. I know this is kind of fuzzy looking through all the structure. The battery pack's light blue and it's got a white foam wrapped around it. And if you can see it, it's stuck back there way at the back end against the elevator servos. It took a little shaking and cussing at it, but it finally did pop free and come down where I can get a hold of it. I have absolutely no idea how a plane like this can fly, and fly pretty much normally with all its weight suddenly moved back there. It just doesn't seem possible, but it did. But even though it flies so well, I'm not trying it again, and now we got some tie wraps holding these batteries down. They're not going back there again. And this is the beginning of the test flight with the battery back where it's supposed to be. And it flies perfectly normal. We did all the tumbles and snap rolls that day, and the battery stayed put.